Hello, listeners. You may be familiar with the tragic story of JFK's death, but do we know what really happened? Today we will discuss the mysteries and myths surrounding JFK's death with our two debaters, Bridget and Margaret. My name is Samantha Nielsen, and this is Rumor Has It. So here's what we know about John F. Kennedy's death. JFK was assassinated on November 22, 1963 in Dallas, Texas. The man who shot him was Lee Harvey Oswald. The president was shot twice, once in the back of the head while riding in an open-top motorcade through the Dealey Plaza at 12:30 p.m., and he was shot once in the back as well. So let's hear what our two debaters have to say about this, Margaret and Bridget. Let's see what Bridget Bria has to say about John F. Kennedy's death.
When most people think about the assassination of President John F. Kennedy, they think of a lone gunman, Lee Harvey Oswald. But for decades, many people have believed that the story isn't that simple. One major conspiracy theory argues that the Kennedy's assassination was actually planned by a larger group. Some believe it involved the government itself, while others point to organizations like the Central Intelligence Agency or even the Mafia. The idea is that Kennedy had powerful enemies, especially after events like the Bay of Pigs invasion, and that these groups may have wanted him removed from power. Supporters of this theory often question how Oswald could have acted alone. They point to things like conflicting witness reports, the famous Zapruder film, and what they see as inconsistencies in the official investigation conducted by the Warren Commission.
All right, thank you, Bridget. Now let's hear what Margaret has to say about the facts and what she thinks about JFK's death.
When people claim that the government planned the assassination of John F. Kennedy, the biggest problem is simple. There's no solid evidence. Multiple investigations, including the Warren Commission, carefully examined the case and found that Lee Harvey Oswald acted alone. They looked at eyewitness accounts, ballistics, and Oswald's own background. The rifle used was his, and he was placed at the scene. Later investigations revisited the case, and still, no proof of a government conspiracy was found. Also, think about the scale of a cover-up like that. It would require tons of people across different agencies to stay completely silent for decades. In reality, secrets that big almost always leak, but in this case, no verified evidence ever has. So while the idea of a government plot might sound convincing, the actual evidence consistently points to one conclusion. This was not a planned government operation, and it was just a tragic event.
All right, thank you. Let's hear what Margaret and Bridget now have to say together.
So I just want to bring up that the Warren Commission and the federal investigations like the Rockefeller Commission and Church Committee all are government-based research and they are the ones who concluded that Lee Harvey Oswald was the lone assassin. So don't you think that it's pretty biased that government investigations found that the government wasn't responsible for his death? Don't you think that maybe there's a bit of misinformation being spread by that?
Well, that does create a bias for these sources. There's so many people that go into these investigations, and the HSCA investigates all assassinations involving these important people and they are not completely controlled by the government. They have no means to be hiding government from blame. They find the real truth, in which they found that it was a lone gunman and he was not involved with the government.
Well, that's weird because here I'm reading that the HSCA in its 1979 report concluded that Kennedy was likely assassinated as a result of a conspiracy, which would involve two gunmen. So that's a bit suspicious. I'm getting this from National Archives as my source.
Okay, so even so, that proves that the HSCA wasn't directly involved with the government, and they proved that he was assassinated without government involvement. even if they say there were two shooters, it still proves that the government was not directly involved in it. All right, let's hand it to Sammy and see what she has to say about this.
All right, thank you, you guys. I think you both gave pretty good ideas and put some thought in my head. I mean, there is why would the government want to say that the government killed JFK? And I think Bridget really backed that up there. So I think I'm gonna have to stick to Bridget's side. And I mean, it is tragic if it was planned. It's tragic either way, but Bridget's evidence with how much the government could have helped with this is just, yeah.
Thank you guys so much for listening to the podcast, and stay tuned, except we don't have anything else, but we will still be active on the Instagram.